I'm Jacqueline Gelineau, and I'm joined here today with Stephen Fuhr, who's the Liberal MP candidate for Kelowna's riding. Stephen, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thanks for having me.
So the campaign, it's short, but it's off to a booming start. What are some things that you've been hearing early on from your constituents? What are some of the key issues facing the riding?
Well, I think the ballot question, and everyone seems to be coalescing around it, is how are we going to deal with the Americans when it comes to trade? Because everything that follows underneath that, all the kitchen table stuff, all the individual issues that matter a lot to Canadians will be infinitely harder if our economy gets rolled over by the Americans, or I would say by Donald Trump. So that, I think, is the thing we're talking about most. And downstream from that, obviously housing and affordability, I would say, are the most talked about things. But those things get harder when our economy gets crushed by the Americans. So we gotta prevent that from happening.
If elected, what are some ways that you would be advocating to address those two key issues right there? Tariffs, how they're.
Yeah, well, I mean, if I get elected, I'll talk about that in a second. It's really, really important we get Mark Carney in the driver's seat here. He is uniquely qualified for this moment. He's got proven performance. He's a crisis manager, and he's a world-renowned economist. He is the guy we need to put in the driver's seat here, and this is not a party moment for the country. This is a Canada, this is a country over party situation. So Mark Carney, is, on his own merits, in my opinion, is the guy. If you compare to what else is on offer, I would say Mark Carney's definitely the guy. With regard to local issues, I had a meeting with the mayor now probably 10 days ago. And we went through all the infrastructure asks that they have either being built out now or they're going to be asking for very, very shortly. Kelowna is the second biggest or fastest growing municipality in the country, and we just can't do it on our own. So the airport, transit, roads, all our community centers are old and either need to be replaced or repaired. There's just a big, long list of things that they need. And I was really effective at getting federal funding the last time, and I can do it again.
Kelowna is a very close riding right now, according to the polling between the Conservatives and the Liberals. Why do you think that is here in Kelowna? What kind of a demographic is pushing us that way?
This again, it's the fastest or second fastest growing municipality in the country, and it's becoming much more urban. And typically, if you looked across the map, urban ridings in the country tend to be more progressive, and I think that's a part of the situation. We've also demonstrated we can win here, and I think that's also adding to it. I'm really one of the things I'm most proud of right now, because we're halfway into this, is that we have really good bipartisan support for this campaign. Like a third of my volunteers are for the NDP. We have some Greens, we have some progressive Conservatives, and of course we have some Liberals. And I think that's a really good indication that people really need to come together in this moment. It's a big moment for the country, and if we have to rise to it. We don't have another opportunity here. We have to do it.
I know kind of the hot button topic is tariffs and our relationship with the United States, but it's also affordability is a really big issue here. We've heard a lot of the last two terms with the Liberal government. Affordability has become an increasingly large issue for a lot of people, a lot of middle class and lower class families. Why would this term be any different?
It's not, and I think some of the policies we've seen out of Carney so far address those things. I was just pointing out that if our economy collapses, it will be even harder than it already is. With regard to specific things, there's a tax cut for middle-income Canadians. There's a big effort on housing, which is really important. It's long to detail all the specific nuggets in that, but it's the biggest housing initiative since post-World War II, with money attached and land and bureaucracy, red tape cut and stuff like that. And it will be, and accountability. So the federal government's going to stay with a watchful eye over this thing and make sure that municipalities and provinces that get this big support build it out as it's intended. Otherwise, they won't get the money. So there'll be accountability. And housing is a big deal, as we know.
Speaking to accountability, we have different perspectives with elected officials across the country on how much accountability to the public and to the media that they should have. What's your perspective on that, and what have you seen locally here?
Well, I mean, I was an MP before, and I was always accessible to the media. So I think most of the reporters in town have my personal number, and if I can answer it, I answer it, and if I meet with them as soon as I can. And it's not always easy, and I think that's part of the point. As an elected official, you have to be held accountable. That means being available and answering the questions that you're asked to the best of your ability. If you deny the press that ability, I think it's a big part of the job, and I don't think you're doing your constituents the best service that you could possibly give them.
Mm-hmm. In this age of people call it fake news media, there's a lot of distrust in the media. What would you do as an elected official to ensure, and Bill C-18 that's blocking media on Facebook, what would you do as an elected official to ensure your constituents are informed?
I think there may have been some unintended consequences about that. I think it probably needs to be looked at again. I mean, the reality is, if you see something online, I think the default position is, until you can confirm that it's true, probably best just to note what it is and then go to a source that you trust to make sure that it's actually the fact. There's more. It is a problem, and in a liberal democracy where free speech is that's a protected thing, you can run down all sorts of rabbit holes with people just posting stuff on Facebook. So you really need to be careful about what you're consuming. And again, until we figure out a way to better deal with this, I think probably the default position is, until you know for sure that it's true, is just take a note of it, go to a trusted source, and it just takes a lot of time, and this is why many people don't do it. They don't have the time to fact check everything they're consuming. So I recognize it's a problem, and we probably have to think of better ways to combat it, because right now it's an issue.
Mm-hmm. Well, a key issue as journalists that we acknowledged was when the wildfires were happening here in 2023.
My house burned down, I'm very
familiar. Some members of the public were having difficulty accessing news because it wasn't on Facebook, which is what they're used to.
Right.
What would you do to address concerns of climate change, to just in speaking of the wildfires, people's concerns of climate change while balancing a robust economy?
Well, I think we can do both. In fact, we have to do both. We shouldn't. The fact that we're even talking about whether humans are driving climate change or not is, to me, nonsensical. We are. The experts say we are, and we need to do something about it. What we should be debating, arguing about, is how we're going to do it. What's on offer right now is a party under Carney that is going to continue to figure out the best way to do this moving forward, and Pierre Poilievre, who's basically going to tear it all down and do nothing about it, which is going to be add another layer of complexity. Not only is it not dealing with climate change, which is a problem, we're going to have to cozy up to Europe in a big way very quickly here on trade, and the Europeans are doing a lot to combat climate change. And if we want a trading relationship with them, so do we. So the fact that, again, what we should be talking about is the how, not whether we're going to do it or not. So again, the contrast is pretty clear about what's on offer. We have one party, the Liberals, that acknowledge it's a problem and want to do something about it and are going to build out a way to deal with it. And the Conservatives, which obviously don't seem to think it's as big a deal as it should be.
The Liberals had the carbon tax and have wavered on that, and that's since been repealed. There's been other strategies discussed for combating climate change. What would you be advocating for if elected, if a member of parliament, to combat climate change?
So again, this is really interesting, because 67% of Canadians, a clear majority, 66%, want action on climate change. They recognize it for what it is, and they want the government to do something about it. 47% of Conservatives feel the same way. So if you add all that together, it's a fairly boisterous group of probably farther right-leaning Conservatives that don't, and have managed to make it such a politically hot-button issue that, we have no consumer carbon tax, which, incidentally, all the experts, every single one that I've seen, has said is the most cost-effective way to deal with this. But it's become such a political hot-button issue, we're not going to do it. So the industrial emitters are going to continue. Mark Carney's talked about that, and we're going to have to come up with a different way. I don't think he's really built that out yet completely, but the reality is there's a recognition that climate change is happening. It is being accelerated or driven by humans doing their thing on the planet, and it has to be dealt with. So industrial carbon pricing will remain in place. The price of the pumps, for political reasons, has now gone away. And then through technology, and I'm sure, but he's the expert on this, I'm not, but I'm on board with doing it. So we'll see how he unravels how we're going to do it specifically moving forward.
You're right. You've been here for a long time. You're very ingrained in the community here. What are some key parts of your riding that you'd like to highlight?
Well, it's a different riding. Obviously, Lake Country's gone out of the riding. We have all of Kelowna, with the exception of a tiny little bit down by the hospital, for lack of a better term. And then we have a big rural chunk, that Highway 33 corridor out to Beaverdale and Big White. So I'm sure Big White's happy that they're in the Kelowna riding. We used to do a lot of work for them. What would I highlight specifically? I mean, this is the fastest growing community in the country. We have a housing problem, and it's significant. So if the federal government's going to put a lot of resources into this Build Canada Homes, I'm going to be through the front door saying, if you want to start doing this, this is the place for it. It's not a pilot, but this is where we want to get going quickly. The City of Kelowna, the staff, the elected officials here are excellent at delivering on projects. That made my job, the first time I did it, super easy when I went through the door and say, hey, we need a water money and there's a water project. We're ready to go. Let's do this. To springboard on that, the Housing Accelerator Fund, I think we were number 2 in the country to get it, and it's been wildly successful, and they've only used half that money. It was a $32 million federal government deal. They've used a little more than half. There's $15 million left in that bucket, for lack of a better term, and it goes away if Pierre Poilievre gets elected because he doesn't like that program. So we lose 15. We're going backwards on day one, right, on housing here, which I don't want to see happen. But if we get the Carney government, which is what the polls are showing, we keep that 15 million, and then I'm going to be through the door, beating on everyone's door in Ottawa, saying, "Hey, listen, you want to start this Build Canada Homes? We're ready to go here in Kelowna."
Another really key issue for the Kelowna riding is homelessness and nonviolent crime. Healthcare is predominantly a provincial issue, but crime and this, quote, revolving door of criminality has been discussed extensively. What would you be advocating for here, specifically in Kelowna, where we do have really high rates of nonviolent crime?
Yeah, and interestingly, we talked about this today. When I spoke to the mayor, after we talked about infrastructure, obviously habitual property crime here is bad. Like, it's really bad, and people are tired of it, and I don't disagree with that. Yesterday, Carney dropped a pretty big platform piece on dealing with this stuff. So more RCMP, more CBSA, willingness to change some of the laws that we have to make it easier for law enforcement to enforce some of these habitual property crime issues. So there's a recognition. I did hear this at the door, to be fair, quite a bit. The federal, or the incoming, hopefully, Carney government is acknowledged it's a problem, and they're willing to do many things to combat that.
And my final question for you is, what is your favorite part of your riding?
My favorite, we live in Kelowna, there's so many favorite parts. I would say probably I like the downtown a lot. I like the north end of the downtown because it's all kind of new and vibrant. I like the whole thing, but I like kind of the vibe there.
Yeah, like the microbrewery.
Yeah, and that's where my temporary office is right now. But yeah, I'd say I like to hang there.
That's lovely. Well, thank you so much for coming in. This was a pleasure. Thank you.
My pleasure.